Well, brothers often have a special bond, and that's the case among 5 South Omaha brothers who did everything together, including going to war. In a story you'll only see on 6, Brian Master reports on some striking similarities they shared with some famous brothers.
You know, it was kind of rough going for...
Some of us go through life hedging our bets. Old photos often remind us.
We used to shoot at each other when we was kids, playing with .22s, and shot my brother in the foot one time.
Danny Smith, along with his brothers, once considered the biggest wager of all.
Why don't we get a pool going, and the last one living will come up with us. We'll all put in $50 or $100.
Even though Danny was the youngest of the 5 brothers,
the last one standing gets it. Well, the smart money was on me going first.
He has multiple sclerosis, which keeps him in a wheelchair.
Then I got to wonder, I said, no, I ain't trust some of the older ones.
The brothers never made the bet. No one wanted to risk the thought of someone picking money over family.
So we scratched that one because one didn't trust the other well enough.
It turns out Danny would have won. In a way, the Vietnam War brought the brothers closer together. James Smith, 5 years older than Danny, went to fight first. He was drafted. Walter soon followed. He received a Purple Heart. Thomas was next. He volunteered for the Marines. Melvin joined the Navy. And in 1968, 17-year-old Daniel Smith enlisted in the Army. The Omaha Sun newspaper featured the 5 brothers serving their country. Only then, Danny says, was he told about a link they shared with 5 other military brothers. In World War II, the Sullivan brothers of Waterloo, Iowa, insisted on serving together. During the Battle of Guadalcanal in 1942, hundreds of sailors died, including the 5 brothers, when their ship, the USS Juneau, was sunk. Their death spurred a new military regulation for family members serving together.
When we were kids, we watched the movies, and it didn't really sink in, even when we lived in Waterloo.
The similarities with the Sullivan brothers were eerie.
They had one sister too, and so did we. It was really weird having lived in that house too.
Danny Smith explained why no one questioned his brothers about serving in Vietnam.
We never told them that we had kinfolk in the war with us, because they would have sent all but the youngest home, or sent them to Germany, or they wouldn't have taken them out of the service, but they would have taken them out of combat, and that wouldn't have sat well.
Unlike the Sullivan brothers, the Smith brothers came home.
People said we came home changed, but I couldn't really tell, because I was just a baby when I went in. I couldn't really change because I hadn't developed yet. I did start shaving rather quickly.
The Smith brothers survived Vietnam and returned to Nebraska to live their lives. The first big change in 2003, Jim and Walt drowned in a boating accident. Melvin died a few years later when his motorcycle hit a deer. And Tom died here in Omaha in September, crossing the street. That left Danny, the sole survivor, to share the bond of brothers story.
If one went, we was all going to go. And that happened. We carried that all the way through life.
In Norfolk with photographer Jim Hinchuk, I'm Brian Mastery reporting, WWT6 News.
Now, Danny Smith says that his brothers never crossed paths on the battlefield. They tried to keep track of each other, though, the best they could.